Hello, happy Saturday, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Candid Convos with Celia Werner. I have been looking forward to this episode for weeks. I have been talking to all of these amazing people that are going to be on today about, coming on and talking about one of the staples in Hofstra history, the Friends of Max Kolb Telethon. This telethon started out with these amazing founders and ran for, I believe, 16 years. But if I got that wrong, I'm going to hear it really quickly from them. So I'm really excited to, have this conversation today. And if any of you guys in the comments have been involved with any of the telethons or just want to tell us that you're here and say hi, make sure to leave a comment. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them there as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring everybody in, and I hope that everyone gives a virtual round of applause out there for the founders of the Friends of Max Kolb Telethon. So today we have Laura, Rachel, Michael, Nick, and I think we have one more person with us, guys. Who's that? Who is that wonderful person?
Some old guy who was some guy who used to hang out.
No, I think we have.
He's retired. I mean, he's not hilarious.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you guys here, and I'm so glad that you guys were able to take some time out on your busy pandemic schedules to come and talk with us. So real quick, for people that aren't familiar with what the telethon was, Laura, would you mind giving us a little background on, what that was and, what your involvement was?
Sure. Okay. So the telethon was a long time ago. The first telethon was in 2002, spring of 2002. That was my senior year at Hofstra, and it was part of AVF 165. So it was part of the senior television class. The production that we had to pitch and put together. It started off, I'd say it really was a way for us who knew Max to get together, to remember him and to grieve. It was only about a year after the events of his sudden passing at the school. So all of us got together, and I it was kind of a way for us to bring everyone's school of comm together. He was a film student. I was a TV student. So it was kind of a way that we could bring the TV students together, and as well as even we worked with the radio students, and the money that we raised went to film students as a scholarship, and we brought in students for the talent. So we had singers and dancers, and it just brought in a lot of people. So it was honestly just, in my mind, it was just a one-time thing. It was really just my senior project. I'm sure Dr. G has another way of saying it, but I did not plan for it to go on for, I think you are correct, 16 years. I believe the last one was in 2017. But yeah, it was really just supposed to be a one-time thing. And it kept going for many years.
And for people that aren't familiar, this was a telethon, correct? So it was like a variety show, yes?
Yeah, it was a telethon, and I believe it was the first time we had done anything like that. And I will still refer to it as Dempster Hall. It's always Dempster Hall, but the School of Communication.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, the School of Communication at Hofstra University. So yeah, it was scheduled to be 90 minutes live. I think we went almost 2 hours that first year, and we were just kind of going minute to minute at the last 30 minutes that first year. But we had live performers. We had some pre-tape performers. We had phone answerers. I think some of them are actually listening in right now. So they were taking calls and taking donations over the phone, which, I mean, if you think back to 2002, this was before Facebook. I was handing out paper pamphlets. I had things pinned to my backpack to promote it. So it's amazing, really just amazing what we've accomplished over the years.
That's amazing. And what was your role on this show? And I'm going to ask everyone that question, so prepare your answers.
Okay. Well, I was the founder, I guess. And I think my title was probably producer that first year. So yeah, I felt like I did a little of everything, but I would call myself the founder and producer of the original telethon.
That's amazing. So let me bring everyone else back up. So obviously we have 6 of us here today. I worked on the telethon in 2015, but I would love to hear what you guys did. G, we're gonna have you go last because you've been involved with all 16 of these. But let's have Rachel go next. Rachel, what was your role in the telethon?
So I think I was TD because Laura recently shared that list. But I have a little bit different perspective because Max passed the end of our junior year. So all of us here graduated in 2002. And I was production manager of Hofstra Concerts, which was the sister organization to Entertainment Unlimited. So Max was involved in that organization. And so my last memory of junior year is actually all of the EU, the Entertainment Unlimited e-board, the Hofstra Concerts e-board, and the fraternity. We all met at the end of the year and we all cried and we all were really like, it was just so sudden and everything had happened. And then we all, like, I went home for the summer. We came back at the beginning of senior year and, you know, it was still really fresh for us, but I think we had time and perspective. And then we actually got back on campus. It was like September 5th, 2001, and September 11th was like a week later. So, you know, we went from one tragedy at the end of junior year to like this huge tragedy at the beginning of our senior year. So HEAT had actually just started. It was founded by 3 women, and 2002 was our first year of having TNL, which was the first show. So 165 was the place where, and G will definitely correct me of these details, but 165 was the place where we had our student projects. And then HEAT actually didn't exist. So we also were founding that at the same time. So there was a lot of innovation going on. There was a lot of creativity. We all really came together in a beautiful way. We all lived in Dempster, like, you know, that was our home. And that was where we found comfort, especially because these, you know, hugely tragic things were kind of happening for us, like one after another, it felt like. So when 165 came around, those of us who were involved in every show, which is pretty much everyone on this call, you know, it's kind of a blur as to the individual shows, but I do remember being in the control room for this show and just, you know, being so grateful that we had this place to talk through or share or be creative about tragedy. I mean, you know, maybe that's the lesson here, is that even 20 years later, you know, what do you do when you're in these moments? And for people like us, we create. So Laura brought the idea up, and, you know, we were just about to enter into the real world, and we got to experience all these things. So, you know, it was so cathartic to be with the people that we loved and to be together and to be celebrating a life that was obviously cut way too short, and to be in a super scary time. Like, you know, we didn't know what was going to happen when we graduated. We didn't know if there were going to be jobs. We can empathize, I think, now a lot with what's happening with the class of 2020. Only we got to be together in ways that, you know, they had to innovate a little bit more. But like Laura said, they were old style phones. I don't think we had cell phones. We might have. Definitely no Facebook. I don't even think there was MySpace at that point. So, you know, it was a journey. But we're just so grateful to, I mean, I'm just so grateful to be able to have been at that initial experience. And I don't know. So I think that was my involvement. Everything.
Yes.
Thank you so much for giving us kind of like, I would say like a background of what was happening at the time that the telethon was being put together. I think that, you know, for people that joined in on the telethon for years after, we knew the story and we knew how, like, when and who was involved in the beginning, but I don't think many of us realized that was what the world was at that time. And yeah. You know, we took it for granted that HEAT was around and EU was around, all things, but at that time, it wasn't a thing yet.
No, it wasn't. And we all worked really hard, you know, and we were doing the new HEAT shows and we were doing 165, and, you know, everything was happening at the same time. So when Laura came up with this idea, you know, I just remember everyone being like, yes, let's do it. I don't know how we're going to fit it into our schedules, but let's do it.
I don't think there was anything that we wouldn't do to find something to do in order to help ourselves cope with what was going on in the world at the time. And keeping busy, I think, is what kept a lot of us sane. Even if we weren't directly involved with things that were happening in the world at the time, the fact that we had other people to lean on, we had a place to go. I mean, Dempster Hall was just so important to everybody. I spent so much more time there, except when I had to hole myself up in my room and do some graphics. Other than that, I spent almost all of my time at Dempster.
Were you like Photoshop 1 at that point? Like,
I think I was on 5. There was a 5 and there was a 6, and I think there was a 5.5. So that might have been the one that I had pirated at the time, because I was super happy to have a nice LAN connection at Hofstra, something I had never had before. So I could pirate all kinds of software. It was great.
Nick, what was your involvement in the show? What did you do?
Well, I was a stage director, stage manager. So, I mean, my involvement in that part of the show, the actual broadcast of the show, wasn't all that consequential. For me, what was most personal about the show is that Laura and I had been friends since freshman year, basically since we first got to Hofstra. And I saw the telethon through the lens of her experience. And it was really just important to me to be there as like moral support and to help her with whatever she needed. And I think my most enduring memories of the show were, one, her playing the violin during the broadcast, and also going to Boston to go visit Max's parents and do an interview with them. And while there were some nice times with us driving up there with a car full of people to get this done, it was really just a very emotional and poignant moment that I'll never forget. I wish I had been able to do more on the show, quite honestly. I wish I had been able to do graphics and get more involved in it, but everyone had their roles, so I was kind of
stage manager has a very important role, and I think anyone else on this call will say getting people to the right place at the right time is super important. So don't discount yourself there.
You know what, though? It was just such a blur. I don't even remember the actual directing the people on stage, because there were people coming from the left and the right, and most of the time my eye was on the monitor, because I just wanted to see what was happening. I wanted to see the reactions of the people who were off stage, and the actual production of the show just kind of like blends into the back. I barely even remember it. I remember watching the screen and seeing how everyone was reacting to the actual things that were going on the air.
That must have been a really heavy moment for everyone to kind of see it actually happening and like the fruition of all of the work that you guys had put in. But I'm going to have, I don't want to like cut off Michael and G from their intros. So we're going to have Michael speak, and then we're going to have G speak, and then we'll have some more, I guess, open conversation. So Michael, what was your involvement in the show?
So I think to everyone's point, as far as my involvement, it has been a blur. I think there was a lot of emotion going on that year. There was a lot of activity, and we all wore many, many hats. And in that way, I feel like we were just contributing as best we could. My actual role was associate director, so it's assisting Chris Allen, who was directing, and just kind of managing and working through. I mean, the bottom line is executionally, we had never done anything like that. So a lot of things had to work together. And I think that was one of my greatest feelings and the achievement that I felt like while it was going on, aside from the contributions and the emotional aspects of it, and all the beautiful things of us coming together, which was all mentioned here. The technical hurdles were pretty extensive, and the fact that we did it as seamlessly as we could, I'm sure looking back, we could have all figured out ways to improve, but honestly, it really came together. It was amazing. And I think you can hear how ecstatic we were at the end of that when we found out how much we raised. I mean, we just didn't think it was ever going to be this massive. We were all there to support Laura, obviously, and to commemorate the memory of Max, and it was an amazing feeling though at the end there when it all came together and we felt like we have a voice, and this was our medium, this was our channel to create and express what we were all going through. So it was spectacular.
How much did we end up raising? It was over $5,000, wasn't it?
It was actually not 9,000.
Oh my God! That included
we raised about $4,000, and Max's parents called in with a $5,000 donation during the show, and I think it's fair to say it surpassed everyone's expectations.
Wow.
That's amazing, and especially for the first year of a telethon, or the first time that Hofstra's done a telethon. That's a crazy amount of money to raise for this cause.
Yeah, and we weren't really looking at numbers. At least I wasn't. I mean, I feel, looking back, I felt kind of selfish. Like, I want the world to know who this guy was. Max was very timid. I actually met him in Dempster Hall in SCO 4 on the 3rd floor of Dempster Hall. And, but it's like I selfishly just wanted everyone to know who he was, what he did, what he wanted to be. And then, like everyone else has said, like, Dempster was a family for me. I was from Michigan, and I went home that summer, and then I came back, had an internship in Manhattan at the Fox News Channel. I was there during 9/11. It was just, there was so much going on, and Dempster was my family. I mean, I've left the industry since, but like Rachel said, I still keep in touch with these guys. I mean, we became so close over all of these terrible events that happened in 2001. And I think that first year especially, we were just there to be creative, to grieve, to be together. The people who were answering the phones and some of the other performers, we all knew Max personally. We had classes with him. We were friends with him, people from EU and concerts. And then, yeah, I remember going up to Boston with, was it Chris and the Knicks?
It was the 2 Knicks and Chris, yeah.
Yeah.
We piled into my Oldsmobile Delta 88.
And I still have a bunch of DVC Pros and mini DVs that unless I have the right tape deck, I'll probably never be able to see again. But yeah, we went up there and interviewed, and we spoke to Max's parents and some of his friends and colleagues. And I don't know. I mean, it was like I was grieving. I was trying to find a way to come to terms with everything that happened, but all around me were just, shoulders I could lean on. Like all of us were working towards something together. And being here with you guys again and talking about it, it just reminds me of how much I loved Dempster and Hofstra. I mean, God, it was an amazing time to be there. So good to be with you guys again.
Yeah.
I think all of us get real nostalgic about those times. It's like probably at the time it was a whirlwind, and I'll bet a lot of the times we were sick of being there or we were annoyed by things. But just the fact that looking back on it, that we were able to form essentially what you said was a family that we've been able to reconnect after all these years. And for me personally, one of those things that the telethon has done for me, and I think for a lot of the other people who were involved there over the years, is that it made us better people overall. I think it had a very poignant effect on anyone who was directly involved, because it was doing something for a greater cause, and we all really gravitated to it. I've never known anybody to be involved in this thing and say, that was a waste of time, or whatever. It's been really special to everyone who is ever involved, and that goes from the very first one to the very last one, which was in 2017. And seeing the way that everyone reacted at the end of that final telethon, we know that it was something that was really special to not only Laura and the people who were involved in the scholarship, but for all of the students that were touched by this project over the years. And I think it just made everyone a better person.
Yeah, I agree. There was so much overlap, like Laura said, between Entertainment Unlimited and concerts. So they were the phone people and the audience members, and then we had our resident bands that we would call for TNL, and then what would become Live from A, which had started up before the telethon. So we weren't the first class to do Live from A, but there was like a group of us that there was just so much overlap between what we were doing in our after school life and then in our school life. And that's why, because we didn't have heat right away, it was just sort of a natural extension. So it all, the telethon just sort of, especially for me and for Laura, I know because Laura was really involved in EU and I was really involved in concerts. Like, it was just every single person I knew at Hofstra in those 4 years that hadn't graduated already was like in that room, and we were all celebrating together, and we were working. So it wasn't like we were at a bar partying. We were in a space where we were being creative and working and contributing and building skills and, you know, walking away from that. When Laura said the last half hour, I sort of just remember, so it must have been Mike as AD, Chris as director, and then me as TD. I just remember like we were just like riffing that last half hour, like, okay, let's keep going. Where money's coming in. Is that right? Or am I making that up?
No, I vaguely remember, and I recently rewatched the recording, which I had on SVHS, and it's a terrible copy, but I mean, you can see the camera kind of moving, and then our hosts kind of looking around, and everyone. But obviously, it's live, and it was unscripted, that last part. And Bo Raines, I think, came back on piano, and we had 2 female singers who I don't remember who it was, but it was like, hey, you guys got another song? Get out there. So I don't remember anything. I don't. The only memories I have.
I do.
Let's
Okay,
get
let's
that.
just do
Yeah,
it.
I think we all talk too much. Time to let G say something.
I mean, the fact that I remember any of this is astounding, because normally I can't remember what happened about 3 days ago. But this thing was amazing. Part of it was AVF 165, it's RTVF 165 now, along with the other changes. Part of what students had to do in there was pitch a show. Not all pitches got accepted. We had X amount of slots, and we had a lot of students. And of course, we were all touched, and we were all affected by what happened to Max the year before. Something I've never said personally out loud in public was that after I had gone through a similar thing at another university, and when Laura was coming into the class, I just made a personal decision that if there was any way I could help or do anything for her or around her, I was going to do it, because I just thought she had been through a lot, and everybody had been affected by it for sure. When she proposed doing a telethon to raise money, and I was so tickled by just the idea initially, because of the idea of putting water back in the well, of students leaving something behind rather than simply taking their, being interactive with their education and walking out, but leaving something behind like that. And it amazed me. It was bold. It was audacious. We had never tried anything like that. I didn't know that we had the technical capabilities of getting the phone lines. We solved it all. And it was an amazing show. My role initially was what it remained, excuse me, all the way through, which was faculty advisor. In the first year, Laura was working without a co-producer, so I kind of served as anything she needed, as a silent partner, if you will, and helped, ran interference with the university, which a couple times I needed to do behind the scenes. They were oddly enough, a little nervous about this, because a year after Max's demise, the young man accused of the crime was coming up to trial soon, and I was called in at one point to the university's university relations, which had some, and still does have, amazing people working there. And the head of UR at the time said to me, off the record, we're a little nervous about putting students in front of a live microphone. We're concerned they might say something that might prejudice the trial. And I said, sir, I think we're going to be fine, and we will talk to everybody. And we did, and it really was fine. There were multiple sets. It was technically very, very challenging. The fact that we worked with the crew, some of whom everyone is looking at today, really helped it. It would have run. I don't know a way to run as smoothly. As far as the last half hour goes, I remember very vividly. Somebody asked me ahead of time, how much do you think we'll raise? And I went, I don't know, $2,000. I do remember the scheduling. The Sopranos was very, very popular at the time, and we were trying to pick the right night and the right time. And someone says, you should definitely, I said, we're thinking of doing it a Sunday night because that's the maximum amount of students in the dorm. Everyone will have gone home, come back. And someone said, whatever you do, don't do it between 9 and 10 because you'll have no one watching. So we literally, I remember this vividly, we started at 10 p.m. and we were supposed to go to 11:30, and we actually ran to midnight. And it was just one of those transcendent experiences. It just really was.
And G, you've been involved with all of the telethons, correct? Like
Yes.
like helping create all of the teams in the class and keeping it going, correct?
Yes, and every year, right the second year, it became a thing about, are we going to do this again? And I thought, well, yeah, of course we should do this again. This was amazing. I knew somewhere around the third or fourth year we'd have a decision to make, and we did. The problem is that college generations are about 2 years long in length, and memories of things go back 2 years, not 4. And people who are freshmen when something happens or weren't there when something happens have no memory of it at all. And about the third year, I remember several faculty people came to me, and I think with good intentions, and said, no one really will know what happened or who he was. Why don't we just make this a benefit, and we'll change the beneficiaries every year. We'll raise money for this disease or that disease. And I remember thinking about that, not much at all. And I thought, no. That's not what we're going to do. If we're going to do this, we're going to do this the way it was designed and for the reason it was designed. And if we don't want to do this, we don't have to do this. But as long as we're going to do this, we're going to do it the way it went, because I thought that Laura and the other people involved with the show really had created an amazing template. And I had no interest in just serving as a fundraiser for our department or for the school. I thought, if we're going to raise money for a film scholarship, first of all, that builds community. It's television students working on behalf of a film scholarship is one of the always the very odd things about it. And I think we should do it. And in fact, what Laura said was absolutely right. We had help every single year from every department in the School of Comm. We had help multiple units at the university, the telecom people, university relations people. There were people I got to work with over the 16 years that I got to know who were just so solid. And this is the last thing I'll say. I want everybody else to jump back in. One of the things they did for us the first or second year, they had given us a telephone number that was unused. I think it was 1200 the first year, so 463-1200. And they were going to sign that to something else. And I had met the person who was in charge of that. And she was wonderful. And she gave us a number the second or third year. She said, no one will ever have this number but you guys, which is, in the primitive days of building brands, that phone number was our number all the way till the last time we did it, which was nothing short of amazing at Hofstra, where things are often in flux and things don't last for long. So it was a very cool experience.
That's awesome. And I would love to really quickly, we have a couple of comments. I have a feeling you guys know this guy. His name is Ryan Byers, and he said, I had a class with Max and got to know him better through Laura. It was an honor to help contribute with setup in the studio and to donate to the scholarship. I'm glad that it went on for so many years and helped a lot of film students. So thank you for tuning in, Ryan. We appreciate your support today and your support back then. And then we also have one other comment from Mr. Joseph James Pence saying, the Max Kolb Telethon was one of the most rewarding productions and fundraisers I have ever been a part of. Any student who was a part of this production through the years knows how important this production was every year and the deeper meaning behind the production. I can attest to the love and dedication every crew member put into these productions year after year. So thank you guys for tuning in. Joe Pence was more towards my time, and I guess Ryan was more towards your time, but that just shows how many people were involved with this and the fact that they're coming back to watch us talk about it today.
Yeah, and Nick reminded me that a couple of years, at least twice, I went back, and I left New York after graduation and went back home to Michigan. So I would travel all the way up. I think I went up in 2011 and then again in 2017. And there were a lot of us there for that very last show, and people that I really hadn't seen in a long time. And when we found out that it was being sunset, we're like, well, we have to go. So I took time off and I flew up to New York to see everyone and hang out. And yeah, I mean, it's like we're all connected through that for forever, I think, I hope.
That final telethon, because I was there, Rob Dalton was there, Ross Shoulder was there, and of course, Dr. G was there. It was really it was amazing to see it finally all come to an end. As sad as it was bittersweet in a way. It was a celebration rather than sort of something that we had to mourn. It was a celebration of something that was really done well and continued to evolve over the years. but as we saw through those comments, affected people from our generation to a generation after that. I mean, it went for 15, 16 years. And I would assume that most of these people all came away from it with a very positive experience and learned a little bit of empathy. And in the end, while most of those people, probably 95% of them, more than that, I didn't even know Max. But they all took something from it that was really important, and they'll remember for the rest of their lives, because they came together to do something for a greater purpose. And I'm just glad that it continued on for as long as it did. And then that final night, it was just when we heard the final total, and I wish I could remember what it was, Dr. G. Maybe you have a final sum, but over the years, I think it came somewhere around $100,000. And
we raised. I remember the last night was one of our most successful ever. It was an incredibly high amount. We actually raised, the telethons actually raised $83,000 over the years, and it was in $2,000 and $3,000 increments. Some years more. That year was it was between 6 and 7. There was when I retired full time in 2017. There was, I believe, 100 with the principal and the interest that had been generated. There was $125,000 in that scholarship. We had really raised the lion's share of it, and because they award the scholarships out of the interest every year, and they don't deplete the principal, that scholarship will be helping out film students, and they get more and more every year, more students and higher amounts of money that will be assisting film students for the indefinite future. And it's an amazing thing that all of us left behind.
And I love that.
Real quick, G, how does the student or students that receive the scholarship get chosen?
They're chosen by the film professors. For a long time, I had no involvement with it whatsoever until one of our associate deans basically stepped in and said, "We're going to actually publicize this a little bit more for the school." And then I didn't want to be part of the people choosing it. They're chosen on merit by my film colleagues. But they did get to the point a few years in where they the film professors stopped disconnecting from the show, and because of the suggestion that was made by one of our then associate deans, Susan suggested that we actually reveal the winners on the show, like the Academy Awards, and I believe we started doing that about the 5th or 6th year, and that was a fun thing to do. It added a nice little element to it, and so the film professors still award that. I don't know what the process is currently, and I don't know how much it's popularized or publicized, unfortunately.
Well, I was trying to remember back the order in which everything happened. Did we have the scholarship when I pitched the telethon, or was that being created? Because I think his father created it. I don't know.
Yeah, the scholarship was in place. The way scholarships work at most universities, and I believe it's the same way at Hofstra, you have to have a certain minimum in order to start a scholarship. It has to be what it's called seeded. I believe the amount is $15,000. They can't really start, issuing interest from it. So I believe his parents created that. They may have had other sources that helped them, and it was an existing thing, and we just raised a chunk of extra money right off the bat and then continued to do so.
Okay. Wow.
And I loved the alumni involvement. So it went for film students, but we as TV students were recruiting, and it didn't necessarily have the alumni network that I feel like we have now. But again, we were 22 years old, and that was a long time ago. So it's hard as a 22-year-old to imagine like 16 years, 20 years, like we weren't thinking that far ahead. But I think that, so the TV students were talking to other TV alums to get the gifts that we were giving away when people called in. Am I right in that? And
yes,
then,
absolutely. At the premiums, that's exactly how it was constructed. And the our alum network is phenomenal and did phenomenal work. And one of the things there are a lot of things that tickle me and make me smile about the work we all did together, and the fact that it went on for 16 years. And Nick, what you said and what Mike said and what Rachel said, what everybody has said, and what Celia said is correct. All the classes that did this, and everyone did every year. We had this particular advanced class in the spring, and every class pitched in and did this. Our alums were nothing short of spectacular. We would reach out to them. They were all working at shows, at places. They would send stuff back for us. We had, we got premiums from everywhere. We had Broadway tickets sent our way. We had, when the Islanders had just won the championship, one of our people, Ryan Mason, I can remember some people's names, and unfortunately, I can't remember everybody. But Ryan was at either National Hockey League or at the Islanders, and he made sure we had a signed hockey stick. And then we got stuff like that from the Letterman Show, from all the shows in New York. It was phenomenal. And our alumni, our TV alumni, did it, and we're just stepped up every year. Every single year, they were amazing.
Yeah,
really, really proud of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing a lot of what you've been through, Dr. G, throughout the years to keep the integrity of the show. And I'll say, thank you, one, because I think that you're right on as far as, it is about a community. I think that there are a few times in our lives where we have so much clarity and purpose around the work that we're doing, and, taking all that energy and bundling into a creation. And I think that the fact that you managed to keep the integrity of the initial concept of the show and carry that over, it was a very tragic story. And I think that was, I didn't know Max personally either, but even knowing the story, I just remember the shock that came from that. So thank you for that. It's the first time I'm hearing how much you actually went through, and I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg. So really appreciate it.
I think we all put Dr. G through a lot that we didn't see.
Well, some of
us more than others. Yes, I know.
More than others. And the thing is, I was just extraordinarily lucky in many ways. I was just the right guy in the right place at the right time, and I got a chance to do this. And the most amazing thing was Laura came up with this idea, and it just so struck me in so many ways as this amazing thing. There's a lot of raps. People take a lot of knocks at college students. They do. Not those of us who have the pleasure and the grace to work with college students and patience at moments, and not patience with others. People take a lot of raps at college students, and particularly nowadays. I mean, it's people take pot shots, and I'm thinking, no, that's not really, you don't know. Yeah, and I was there. I had a chance to do a lot of stuff, and the fact that we were able to continue this, and the fact that, and it just so everybody knows this, in the later years, once we kind of hit the 5th or 6th year with this, it really did, it was much less of a hassle than it was initially. Good. It really was. And people respected this, and people began to anticipate it and offer to help more. And it was in that logistically easier in the following years. It was never an easy thing to do. There was always a lot of stuff that had to get hooked up, connected. The help we got from university relations, the help we got from the tech people, the comm people who hooked up the phone lines and tested every year and worked with us, and were always so cooperative and helpful. I met some of the most amazing people at the university through it. So I was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time and be able to do this. And of all the stuff I had a chance to do, and I had a chance to do a lot of very fun things, being in the position I was in. This was one of the most satisfying, one of the most amazing. And I very distinctly remember, I can't remember every year, but I remember the first year. I remember some of the years in the middle, and I remember the last year. I remember how many people came back for that. I remember that final night. I remember the 10th year, and Laura, that was one of the years you came in.
Yeah. I have. I got an award. I think you got one too. The citation from Nassau County.
Exactly, a citation, and the God, if I had been smart, I would have written everyone's name down, because I'm trying to retrieve the names in my head. They'll come back to me. But the students who did that really pitched in, did an amazing job, got citations for both of us. It was just incredible. And then watching the last year, knowing it was the last time through, was very, very bittersweet. but watching the alumni come back and all the people who came back and helped us, some of whom were some of the winners, which was very, very cool. And then watching where some of those people have gone, it's just been this amazing thing. And Mike, I think you're absolutely right. All of you, and Mike and Nick and Rachel, and all of you are correct about the creation of community. It just created a community. It kept going. And it was this very satisfying thing. Never without its hassles, always worth it in the end.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a big part of it, like what Mike said, is your leadership, because again, all these things were happening. I remember on September 11th coming into Dempster, and it was like a week later, and being in Dr. G's class, and just we weren't even like, what could you teach at that moment? What could you teach us? Because we were like, well, what's going to happen in the world? And I think I said something like, I just want Friends to be back on the TV, because they were running around the coverage, news coverage, and I just want things to go back to normal. And Dr. G just looked at me and he's like, I don't think things are ever going to go back to normal. So, I mean, we were so grateful to have you then, and so grateful to have you now, because the world is still changing.
Very, very kind of you to say that. Matt Wooden, by the way. Matt, I am so sorry if you're watching this that I couldn't your name hit itself for me. Matt Wooden was the producer of the Telethon 2011, I believe it was the 10th one. He did an amazing thing. He got these citations that Laura and I both got. I had no idea. I generally had my ear to the ground. I generally knew almost everything that was going on. I had informants. I had a network. I didn't like surprises. Producers generally don't. But he had kept that from me. And, he even went to the point where, and I hope he's listening to this because it really just floored me, he created a false rundown that only he, and I believe possibly his director, knew was a phony, and it was accurate right up till the last 5 minutes of the show, and then it wasn't. What I remember is I'm sitting there and I look up, and this is in the old Studio A's control room now is vastly expanded from what you guys remember. It's much wider and longer. But this was the old control room, and it was like we all kind of sat flush back against the wall. There was no room to walk in or out. You had to inhale when someone went to the audio room, and yeah. And I'm looking up, and the door is open, and we're right near the end of the show, and one of the camera ops with the portable Ikegami, the big portable studio camera, is standing there pointing at me. And I'm looking at the rundown. I'm thinking, well, I guess I can say this. I was thinking, the fuck is going on here? And it's like, and I was just about to say, why is this guy standing here? Isn't he supposed to be on the floor? And all of a sudden I hear this, and we want to say thank you to a couple of people tonight. And I'm looking at the script and going, this is not in here. What? And I have this, and I look up, and I'm still completely in the dark about this because I'm a little old and slow. And suddenly I'm hearing them talk about the host talk about the work that went into this over the past 10 years and blah, blah, blah. And we really would like to thank Dr. Gershon and Laura Fu. And I look up, and there's my image, and there's a shot of Laura on the floor. And I went, oh, God. Just I'm not ready for this story. Okay. And then they were all turning around, beaming me, going, pointing me to walk in there. And thinking, God damn it, I hate when they do this. And, walking in and watching the cameraman back up and thinking, oh, God, he's going to trip with the Ikegami. And then I'll be explaining that to the engineers on Monday. And walking in there, they had the citation, they had confetti, and it was incredible. So Matt Wooden, if you're listening to this, thank you so much. It was an incredibly nice thing to do. The citation's still hanging in my house, and we just had multiple crews of great people. I'm seeing some of the comments on the side.
Yeah, I want to read a couple.
Please
of these.
do.
Yeah. So Sarah says, I remember that false rundown. The director really enjoyed keeping that a secret, and apparently, you guys definitely got G with that one. So congratulations, you pulled one over on G. We have a comment from Ben Myers saying, Max Kolb Telethon was a great experience. It felt so empowering to be a part of that, class of 2009. As recipient of the scholarship, it was a huge honor. When I think about Studio A, it's where I learned the foundational tools of my career. I'll never
Rap, probably.
Rap. I think it's rap. I have a small concussion, so I'm just, reading as best as I can. I'll never wrap a show, film, pilot without thinking about striking a show in that space with a smile on my face, looking around at the team. Cheers to my Dempster rats, and thanks, Dr. G. Thank you so much for your comment. That every time I'm getting one of these, because there's a couple of people that have left such amazing comments like this, it like brings me back to the show I worked on as well, and it probably brings you guys back to the original feeling when you guys originally wrapped that show. I would love to hear what was going through your heads, like that second of like, we did it, we put on this telethon, and we really made a difference. Because from what I'm hearing, you guys did not expect to raise as much money as you guys did. And I would love to, in a couple of words from each of you, hear how that felt, because I kind of have a hard out at 2:00, so we got 13 minutes to get through all of you guys, unfortunately.
I
I'll
don't
go
remember.
really quickly. I mean, yeah, in hindsight, I'd love to have been more present, because I don't remember either. It was just like we were working and we were trying to get through it. It was such an intense show, but I'd say I would have loved to have been more present to really understand what we were doing and the impact it would have. But yeah, it was a blur. We were just in action, is at least my memory of it. That was it. So
I don't know that any of us were thinking. I mean, I can't account for whatever other people were thinking. I think everybody was just in the moment, Mike, and I don't think people were kind of like, where are we? Are we going to go? Where are we getting out? And I just remember at the very, very end heaving this gigantic sigh of relief that, the whole studio hadn't collapsed on our head, or the cops hadn't come, or something, dreadful had happened. Oddly enough, one of my real strong memories is I believe it was pre-taped of Laura playing the violin. Laura Fu playing the violin.
Yeah.
Rory, I think you pre-taped that.
Yeah, I did, and wow, it's I vaguely remember it, but yeah, that was pre-taped. It took a lot of takes to do that. It was a hard piece.
I don't find that one a vague memory at all. That was my strongest memory from the whole thing. I mean, how do you get that out of your mind? For those who haven't seen it, she played a theme from Schindler's List, which is already, if you've seen the movie and the backstory behind it, and just the music itself is sort of heart-wrenching. And seeing one of your friends who's had this experience play that was really the thing that stuck out the most from that entire night. So yeah, I'll never forget that.
Wow. I don't remember too much of it. I remember when everything was over and it was like, okay, we're done, we're off the air. And I had this feeling of, now what? Because my senior year, like, this is all I thought about. I mean, and obviously with the trial and the end, graduating and what happened in, the previous September, my brain was so full. And this was like my focus. It was like, oh, I have a show to do. I have to, get the talent releases, get the phones set up, all the things that I was doing. And then when it was done, it was like, well, now what? And it was this somewhat scary feeling of like, what's next? I mean, graduation was about a month away. I had no plans. I was going back to Michigan, didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think what probably got me through was just everyone who was there, like looking around and seeing all of us just kind of, relieved that we did this. Like, look what we accomplished. But yeah, I don't remember playing. I don't remember the recording. I don't remember the control room, really. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because when you reached out, Laura, I was like, I do not remember. But some of it comes back. Like, I love what Mike said. Like, I wish I had been more present. We were doing shows after shows after shows, so it was kind of like, okay, this wasn't the last one that year. I think Live from A was the last one, and we still were doing TNL. So it was like, okay, one's done, and we got to do another one next week. And so as executive producer of Heat, and there was just so much oversight over all of the shows and all of the lighting and all of, Nick probably can attest, I did all of he did all of the graphics. Like, some of us had these roles where we were doing it for every show. And so when one would finish, it was like, oh, yay, one's done. Okay, we only have X amount to go. So I do wish, we had the hindsight or the foresight or the time, to be more present in those moments. But again, it was just about community. This show, to see it have the longevity and then to go back and remember, like, just being in that space in Dempster, it could be any show. We were just all together.
And I think that longevity is something that is helping us remember and reconnect about that show, because at the time, there were really no pictures. There was no social media. We weren't able to share this with anybody. It was a very insulated thing. So not that many people were aware of it. And when you look back at the stuff that you kept from college, there's not a whole lot of it that, I mean, apart from your own shows, how many of us even have archive material on any of this stuff?
Right.
So it's just our memories at this point that are keeping that original ragtag group of students alive, and I'm glad that we're able to do that.
Yeah, I have a couple archive materials. I have the press release that was April 28th. As a librarian, I feel like I should keep this, but it was April 28th. So it wasn't quite the end of the year. But yeah, like this was the graphic that I'm ashamed of this. It was like a art. And it looks like the number was 36,000. So
yeah.
And this was before streaming. So in my family, no one outside of campus, I don't think could really watch. They could call in, but they couldn't watch it live. And then when I went back, and then over the years, and they'd have everything was live streaming. I could watch it from wherever I lived. And I remember that year where I was there in 2017, and I was pulled into the hallway. We were all just hanging out, and someone's like, "Hey, do you want to go on Facebook Live?" Me being, well, I'm an old person now. I did turn 40 already. I think some of the others on the call will be hitting that number a little later this year, but
I'm with you.
We're all in it together.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, Facebook Live, what is, like, how does this work? What happens? And I don't even really use Facebook. So it was just amazing to see, I don't want to say kids, but the students at the time, I was like, this is amazing what you're doing. You have live streaming video. They're going around with their mobile devices. Like, the promotion was so incredibly different than what we had with these little flyers back in 2002. It's come a long way.
It's just a testament as to, the legacy that you guys built and how it has evolved over time. Because obviously, if you guys have done your promotion with flyers or something, it's a little different now in the world of in the past couple of years, but in the world of 2020 where everything's online, because we're live streaming right now, and you guys are back talking about this amazing legacy that you guys created.
Celia, what year did you were the
2015.
2015, you were the producer, co-producer?
I was the package producer, so I knew all of the roll-ins. I just vaguely remember being told a couple days beforehand, "Hey, we need 12 more minutes of footage," and I was like, "You need what now?" And then I remember just running and hunting down every single senior film student that I could possibly find, saying, "I need 2 minutes from your film," or "I need 30 seconds from your film," or whatever you guys can give me to what's it called, to play during the show. And thankfully, the senior film students were super appreciative to show their work, but also luckily I had a car and can drive to all the houses to get all of this footage. So I just remember running around and having a little bit of a crazy time on there. But real quick, I know that he has a quick announcement to make, and I would love for him to get to that, because like I said, I have to run at 2 because I'm going to be on another telethon fundraising for Artly World, which is basically raising money for artists of all different kinds that have been affected by COVID-19. So unfortunately, we have a hard out, but I would love for G to make this announcement.
Wait, this is basically a shameless plug because we've done amazing television production since we started. Really, it's 25 years, and the people on this call, several of the people on this Zoom call are some of the original people with Heat. And I just want to remind everybody that Thursday Night Live tonight is up they are finalists for Best Variety Show in the College Emmys. That anybody wants to watch it should go to televisionacademy.com. and I believe you can find the link there. We beat out 200 schools, some of them much bigger programs than ours and much richer resources. We beat out 200 schools to become a finalist. So that's tonight at 8, again at televisionacademy.com, CTA for College Television Awards. So
I love that.
Yeah.
It was so nice to pull that all together, because that was that first year too, and just to see them, being awarded that way. We're just so grateful for everybody that came after us.
I want to thank Celia. Thank you so much for putting this together.
Yes,
this was
thank
an
you.
amazing
Thank you.
opportunity to talk about this. Appreciate it a
I'm
lot.
glad that this was able to be put together, because Laura came to me with this idea and I was like, that is a great idea. Let's see if we could get everyone on board. So I want to give the final words before I close up to Laura with any last thoughts that you think about the fact that we are now in 2020 and we are talking about your senior project and just kind of the legacy that it's had.
Again, I had no idea it would turn into what it did. It was, looking back, it was a very, I say selfish because it's like I wanted everyone to know what I was going through. And maybe even to this day, people don't quite understand what happened and what I was going through. But I did not want to go back to Hofstra. I almost did not go back to college. I don't know if anyone here knows, but I went home for the summer and my parents were like, you really need to finish school, go back, be with your friends. I was so close to just never going to New York ever again. And I think knowing that I had Dempster and the family and everyone there, it's like, I have to go back, be with them. And then this all happened. And I'm so thankful that I finished everything. And, it's just amazing to look back that we're still here talking about it. So thank you, everybody.
We've
Really love
very
seeing
happy
everybody.
to be there
Thank
for the
you
journey
all.
with you.
All right, everyone. So I'm going to close up the show and I'm going to pull you guys off of here. But I know I have to run, but I'll pull you guys all up if you guys want to talk any more memories once we're off air. So quick goodbyes from everyone to all of our wonderful people in the comments. We have Mark Oppenheim. We've got Ed Burnett. We have Ed Myers. We have Brian Byers. That rhymes. We have Sarah. We have Joe. Everyone, thank you so much. We have Adam Mancini tuned in. All of these people came to see you guys. So thank you guys again for coming on today and speaking about this amazing, like I said, staple in Hofstra history.
Can we all stay on for a moment, Celia, once you go?
Yes, I'll bring you guys all back on once we're off air. So let me pull you guys off. Do your guys, do your waves. And,
Thank you.
all right. Everyone's going to disappear real quick. All right. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And thank you to everyone in the comments that either, left their involvement or the effect that this amazing telethon had on their life, their college career. And even we had one of the recipients say that, this really, really, really made a large impact on him and his future career. Thank you guys. Thank you guys all for taking time on this this Saturday, like I said, in pandemic land, to speak with us. And if anyone wants to watch this episode from the beginning, it will be here on the Celia Werner Productions Facebook page. You can watch it on YouTube. It will later be on Spotify podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, as well as SoundCloud. I will be back on Monday for another episode, and I hope to see you guys then. If you guys have anyone that has been involved with the telethon or would love to hear about the story, be sure to share this video. And if you guys have any more comments for us, feel free to leave them. I hope you guys have an awesome Saturday, and we're out.